Welcome to the Week 5 post-game show for the CT Legacy League Summer 24 season. I'm your host, Greg Horne, as always. I got Nick and Racine with me, two interns that have been on this show many times. They don't need an introduction. The players know them, and the league knows them, and I think everyone's ready to hear about what Week 5 brought. We had a week off last week for July 4th, so it was a good time for a lot of these teams to maybe gain some chemistry. Fix a few things and figure out what they can change. But we'll get right into it. And speaking of two teams that are, kind of in the middle of the pack trying to break out of that middle ground, and that's Snipe Squad and Lux Gang, and that's going to be our first game of this week. And Snipe Squad did take it 90-76. I'm going to go to Nick, and then I'll kind of take it home. But, Nick, you mentioned there was something missing from this game that maybe was a big reason why Lux Gang fell short.
Yeah, I only got to watch the end of the game, where Snipe Squad was already ahead. Tim Case went crazy, and I think a big part of that is because Lex Game didn't have one of the top scorers, not on their team, but in the entire league, Trayvon Jones. Really big dude, handles the paint really well, and without his presence, they fell short.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Trayvon Jones, shout out Connor. We did our podcast last week, and Connor, he gave him Offensive Player of the Year, and I don't know if you can give anyone else Offensive Player of the Year right now. I don't know about MVP because, we got Reggie and guys that are just on the better teams, but, Trayvon Jones is a problem. He averages about 40 a game. He hits threes. He is probably the most jacked guy I've ever seen in this league, and he's just a problem. And I think for Lux Gang, they just got to keep their head up and keep moving because – you don't have your best player there. It is what it is. You take it with a grain of salt and you move on. But for Snipe Squad, look, I like these Snipe Squad boys. They got a scrappy team. They really fight. When Angelo is playing well, they really get taken to another level. I love what I see from their other guys, especially guys like Nick Chiarito. I think he's awesome. I think he really fits with what they want to do. But I said to Connor before this game, once I saw there was no Trayvon Jones, I said, Tim Case, generational game incoming. And, that's what it was. He shot pretty much 90% from the field. If you don't have a big guy on your team, good luck guarding Tim Case. I really don't know what else to say about that. Like, this literally came down to what Nick was saying. There was no Trayvon Jones, and Lux Gang just didn't have an answer for Tim Case. That's pretty much the big one. Going forward, Snipe Squad's got Enterprise Elite next week. So, they're looking, and then they end the season with Street Ballers. So, look, Snipe Squad, don't look now, but Snipe Squad could end the season on a 3-game winning streak and go into the playoffs hot. As far as Lux Gang goes, Lux Gang, like I said, keep your head up. You got the Syndicate next week. They have no wins, so, that could be a big game for Lux Gang to kind of get in the right direction. And then, Lux Gang gets Street Ballers, and then they finish the season with Run TMC. So if they get 2 wins these next 2 weeks, and then, they play Run TMC well, they'll be going to the playoffs on the right foot. But I'm going to go to the next game. That's my boys, the Flint Tropics. And the Flint Tropics absolutely smoked Enterprise Elite. Want to give Enterprise Elite a shout-out really quick. I talk about Flint all the time, but Enterprise Elite played really well. They fought. This game was a 100-point game at one point, and then they didn't give up, and I got to give them credit. A lot of teams in this league, I've been on bad teams in this league. A lot of players just give up, and they don't try. And Enterprise Elite, they don't give up ever. They keep pushing. They really fight. They scrap and claw. So I want to show love to Josh Browdy, John Browdy, the brothers, Vincent, Kevin Hoarder, as Jason Hernandez says, and then Joel and Jaquan. Look, they had more guys this game. They look like a better team, and they just ran into the immovable force that is the Flint Tropics and Matt Fink. But I'm going to go to Nick, and then I'll go to you, Racine. Nick, Flint took out Enterprise Elite. What'd you see?
It's kind of the same deal with every single game that Enterprise Elite has played. Whoever plays against them, they always get out and run. They get easy baskets. But I will give Enterprise Elite credit. I believe this is the highest scoring game that they've had all year. I do also think that the Flint Tropics didn't really take them that seriously. They only had 5 guys. They were very lethargical in their movement. They still scored 168 points. But my advice to Enterprise Elite that haven't really seen any teams take advantage of yet, but they might in the playoffs. There's no shot clock. You can slow the game down just a bit. If you play the possession game, that gives you a chance to win. I think that would be their best bet going forward. Just try and slow the game down a bit. Get the best shot. You can kill a lot of clock in one possession. And by minimizing possessions, that gives you a better chance to win.
Yeah, Nick, that is a very, very astute observation because there's teams in the past, for instance, like you said in the playoffs, Flint, Yaga, who's a four-time champion in this league, Flint, like I said, those are two teams that in the playoffs, once the game hits 5 minutes in the fourth, they'll just stand with the ball. They'll just literally pass half court and stand there, and they'll make you either foul them or you're going to have to double team them or do something. And Nick's 100% right. If you're one of these worst teams in this league, slow the game down. Don't just don't get that defensive rebound and then just throw a full court pass and just try to run the game up. Because against teams like Run TMC, Flint, NLMB, Get Money, you're not going to be able to outrun them out the gym. You're not going to be able to outscore them. But what Nick's right, there's no shot clock. So if you shorten the game, less possessions for the better teams, you got a shot. Racine, what'd you see in this one, man? I mean, Flint took it to them, right?
I mean, yeah, it's just what they do. I mean, they didn't even have Mike Bizzuto, and they didn't even need him. I mean, Matt Fink at 60, Quan Jackson at 40, Ricky Rogers at 30. It's just what they do. So I'm not too surprised with the score there. And then as for Enterprises Elite, like you said, like you guys said, I'm happy with the way they played. And then I've watched them like the past 2 weeks, and they really haven't had their whole squad showing up. So it's also nice to see that they had like one or two guys coming off the bench. So it just kind of shows if once their team shows up, they can play a little better because their team is not going to be gassed. But yeah, I like what I saw from them. But Flint Tropics, they just had a pretty easy game, and then next week they got TMC. So it's a good momentum game for that game.
Yeah, that's going to be it's the game of the week next week. Flint Tropics, they're just kind of building and moving to the right in the right direction, just trying to find a groove going into the playoffs because they're probably going to be one of the top two seeds. Speaking of a team trying to find their groove and get into the playoffs, that's NLMB going up against Syndicate, and finding a groove is what the Syndicate needs. This might be their best game they've played this year. Um, I just don't know if they have enough scoring ability on their team. NLNB, Christian Dessou was phenomenal in this one. Dante Hodge did his thing. Alex Willis is a very underrated player in this league. I love Alex Willis. I think what he does in the defensive end and as a leader of this team, he's just awesome. And he really is the glue for this team. But when you got Christian and Dante dropping 52, they almost outscored the Syndicate by themselves. So for the Syndicate, I want to give a shout out to Alex Rivera. He's having a great year. Eric Moore and Mikey Fuller had a great game. Syndicate played well this game. I mean, look, I'm not going to shit on them because they fought in this one. They lost by 10 to a team NLMB that, some people have high in the power rankings, some people don't. But, for the Syndicate, I mean, let's see who they got next week. Syndicate got Lux Gang next week. I mean, look, I would pick Lux Gang, but I mean, hey, the Syndicate could win that game. It's just going to take them maybe figure a few things out. Like, again, I'm going to go back to what Nick said. Maybe slow the game down. No shot clock. Got to try something different, especially when you're coming into week 6, you're 0-5. But again, for NLMB, I just want to give a shout out to those boys. They're playing great basketball. They always play consistent basketball, and you kind of know what you're going to get with NLMB. They're just a team that, again, a lot of the teams in the mid-pack right now are just going to scrap and claw. And that's really what NLMB does. I mean, if you look at some of their losses, they lost to Get Money by 9. They lost to Flint by 8. And then they beat Lux Gang, Street Ballers, and Syndicate. So, I mean, look, they get Run TMC in 2 weeks. It's a little gauntlet for Run TMC. I'm not going to lie. They get Flint Tropics and LMB. But, for NLMB, just kind of figure out, get in a groove and keep moving forward, keep doing your thing. Because I think if they can pull off an upset against Run TMC, that would really shake things up in this league. So for NLMB, just keep pushing, do your thing. Shout out the snipers on that team. And for Syndicate, hey, next week's a big one, Syndicate. I want to see y'all come out hot. But for our next game, we're going to go to the Get Money boys and Connor's championship pick. And Get Money, this was a close game in the beginning. It looked really good. The Street Ballers were playing really well, and then they just let the refs get to them. I know the refs at times can be not the best, but you got to push that to the side, and you got to focus, because when you're playing someone like Kyle Davis and he's on fire like that, you're not going to beat Get Money. And when you're worried about the refs, I want to give a quick shout out before I kick it to Nick Racine to Joito Acosto. Don't know if I pronounced that right, but man, this guy might just be our rookie of the year. He is playing phenomenal basketball. He averages about 23 a game, 60% shooting. He also shoots 60% from the field. He also shoots 80% from the free throw line, and then he has 7 boards a game. He's just this guy's a beast, and it's good to see Street Ballers. They last year they had a mix and mash of this team, and they didn't do really well. So it's good to see them competing. But I'm going to go to you, Nick, and then Racine. Nick, what'd you see from Get Money and Street Ballers?
You hit the nail on the head about the refs. A lot throughout the game. The last two games for Street Ballers, they've been a little short fused on the refs. They were down by 5 going into the fourth quarter. I believe it was 52-47. Street Baller, they come out, hit 2 threes, take a 1-point lead. Then there's a technical foul on Street Ballers, and then everything unraveled from there. And I feel like if they're a little bit less focused on what the refs are doing, a little bit more worried about what they're doing, they'll find a little bit more success and a little bit more favoritism from the refs. They have a hard job. They miss stuff. Same thing with us doing the stats. Like, sometimes we miss something. And just a short fuse surprise that's coming from them. And they had a chance to win the game and to get their first win in a couple of weeks. But once that technical foul happened, everything unraveled from there.
Yeah, I mean, again, like before Racine goes, they got outscored in the fourth quarter, 26-15. I mean, this was a close game, and then like me and like Nick said, you got to just move. I know refs can be bad. It's like anything in life. You're not going to agree with your principal, a politician, your mom, anyone, a boss. Like, you're going to have disputes. You're not going to agree, but you just kind of got to push that aside and focus on the goal at hand. Racine, what did you see in this one from the Get Money boys?
Yeah, Get Money. They got off to a pretty slow start. Street Ballers actually really surprised me. I was expecting it to be like a pretty comfortable win for Get Money, but it turned out to be like a hard-fought win. But yeah, like I said, they got off to a slow start, but then Kyle Davis all of a sudden wasn't missing any threes. And then he got them back into the game. And then it continued on to being a close game up until like you guys mentioned, to the fourth. Get Money just pulled away. But looking forward, as long as Kyle Davis continues to play like the way he is right now, they're going to be in great shape. But Street Ballers, I like the way they played. It's just unfortunate with the refs again. You just got to stay locked in, but it's not bad looking forward for their next games. They just got to keep playing like the way they are and focus more on the game than the refs.
Yeah, no, I agree because I think we all agree this Street Ballers team, they're talented. They're not a bad team. They have talent. They have something there, and I know it's hard when the refs, like, I mean, I played baseball. That was my sport growing up, like my main sport, and I used to get thrown out of games all the time. Like, I get it, but you just got to push through, and I think these Street Ballers boys will be refocused next week, especially when they're playing. Let's see who they got next week. Lord's Army, and that's a very winnable game for them. And Lord's Army is going to want that win because, speaking of Lord's Army, good transition by me, they're coming off a loss next week from this week against Run TMC. And we're going to get into that one because Run TMC kind of took them out, 76-65. I want to give TMC credit because they always come at me for not giving them any love. I think Run TMC looks like the best team in the league right now. With Flint, I think those two are just the clear 1 and 2, and then there's a big gap. And, honestly, I think we're going to make a tier list coming up in one of these later post games, and I think TMC and Flint would be the S tier, and then, the rest of the teams you can kind of put where you want. But shout out my dog right here. But I think that, I got to give Run TMC credit. Reggie Stewart, one of the best players we've ever seen in this league. Eric Langston, I'm really, really, really glad you guys got to finally meet Eric Langston. Eric Langston is so funny because Eric Langston has been playing this league for about 10 years, and when he first joined this league, he was younger and he played totally different. Like, he was like a guard. He had handles. He was filthy. Then he got a little bigger, and now he's just a big guy, but he can still shoot. And I'm so glad you guys got to see Eric Langston. So I'm going to go to you, Nick, and then Racine. What'd you see from TMC and Lord's Army in this one?
Yeah, I thought that Run TMC was going to run with this game a little bit, but that's not what happened. Lord's Army came out firing in the first quarter, had a 3-point lead. I believe they had a 4-point lead, and then Eric Langston came in, slowed the game down just a bit, hit 2 post shots, tied the game up going into halftime, and then Run TMC kind of took control in the third quarter and kept it at bay in the fourth quarter. I did think that this was one of Run TMC's worst games considering who they played, but also Lord's Army, Jay Hernandez, he showed up in the second half and let's just say he had a little too much to drink on his wherever he was.
His birthday. It was his
It was
birthday. He
his
was
birthday. Oh, okay.
yeah. Yeah, it was his birthday, so Jay, shout out Jason. He probably had, a few, I don't know, maybe tequila sodas, maybe I don't know what he had, but he probably is vibing out. Hey, happy birthday, Jason! You're a legend in this one. I hope you had a good birthday, Jason. He's a two-time All-Star. He's a champion. Jay Hernandez has been in this for a while. Racine, I agree with Nick. I think this was more about what Lord's Army kind of showed in this one, and TMC not playing their best. What'd you see in this one from TMC and Lord's Army?
Yeah, Lord's Army played very well. TMC, I originally wasn't that high on them, but based on what I saw from Eric Langston, I was not familiar with his game at all. Cause like he's a game changer for them if he's playing. I mean, he can shoot threes, and you can't stop him if he goes down in the paint because he's just too big for the other guys. So if he's there, like he's a big game changer, and he proved to be during that game because he was like in the first half he was kind of cold. He was missing his shots, and to be fair, he showed up late to the game. But once he got warmed up, he got confident. He was talking trash up and down the court, and then he just got to a point where he wasn't missing and he was all having fun. So I thought my biggest takeaway was the impact of Eric Langston. But then, Reggie Stewart did his thing, and then you got 12 from Will Hudson, 12 from Eric Singleton. So the other guys on their team did their job as well. So yeah, I would agree. It was more about the way Lord's Army played, and then just a little not their typical game for TMC, but nonetheless they got the W. So
Yeah, no, I think for TMC it could be, a classic look ahead game. They got Lord's Army this week. They know they got Flint next week, and they're just, a little more focused on Flint. But Eric Langston, yeah, Eric Langston's one of those guys. Just for a little backstory from him, I mean, 2 seasons ago he had a game-winning three to win the finals for Run TMC from about half court. Eric Langston is one of those guys that everyone knows him. Some guys talk shit and they can't really like back it up or they don't like it. Eric Langston is one of those guys that loves talking shit. He loves finding someone in the crowd that is going at him or he's on the other team or a fan, and he thrives off that. And look, Eric Langston is a very skilled basketball player, and when Reggie Stewart is shooting good, and Will Hudson's hitting threes, and Eric Singleton, and I mean Devon Pratt hasn't really had a breakout game, and you got Dave Armstrong. This TMC team has so much experience. I mean, honestly, they probably have over 20 championships combined on this Run TMC team just with their players. So, look, they got a veteran team. They got a lot of accomplishments. And again, like I said, I'd be shocked if it isn't a Flint TMC championship this year. But speaking of Flint TMC, before we get out of here, I'm going to have you guys make your picks for this one. Flint Run TMC next week, game of the week. I'm going to go Nick and Racine. Who do you got, Flint or Run TMC?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, Flint has been so consistent, and I like to think that they've had a harder schedule, but I think at this point they've played the same teams already. But that being said, Flint Tropics doesn't have a Reggie Stewart, so I'm going with Run TMC by. If it's a spread of 5.5 points, I can't take it. Like it's gonna be that close.
Yeah, it's probably around there. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game. Racine,
It's
who you
gonna
got?
come down to the last 2 or 3 possessions,
I agree.
without a doubt.
I agree.
uh, I think I gotta stick with Flint. I haven't seen anything from them where I can say that I would see them losing. But if they were to lose, I would say it's more of maybe they just weren't making their shots or they didn't play well more than TMC flat out beating them. But yeah, I haven't seen anything from Flint that they would just lose. But also, if I'm right, did TMC beat Flint in last year's championship?
TMC beat Flint last year in the semifinals.
Oh,
Matt
that's it.
Fink had the flu that game, so Matt Fink wasn't there for that game, which I think is usually I don't like to say that, but he is their best player, so I think that is big. Then TMC lost in the finals to a team that had a few guys like Devon Pratt, Eric Langston were on the team that beat TMC. Now they're on TMC.
Okay, yeah. So there's
Yeah,
also just that added motivation in there too to get because they didn't have one of their
I
best
agree.
players from last season. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with Flint.
Yeah, no, I think Flint's on a mission. It definitely, this is a men's league, so you get the flu. It's like, if I really want to go play Legacy Leagues basketball. So, but hey, you got to play with who you got. And me as a number one Flint supporter, I still think even without Matt Fink, you're going playing against Run Team C. You got to show up, especially when you're the number one team all year. And that's why it's sick. We're going to get Matt next week. We're going to get the full Flint boys. We're going to get the full Run Team C boys with new Run Team C looks because Eric Langston, Pratt, and Scave and these boys, they got some history with Flint. It's going to be a good matchup. It's going to be a good week of Legacy Leagues basketball. Nick, Racine, I appreciate you guys joining up on this one. It's a great post-game show, and I can't wait for playoffs because that's when it really starts kicking in. But for me, Greg, for Nick and Racine, we appreciate you all, and we hope you all have a great week.